Hey everybody, Bruce here, traveling with Bruce. I've got an update here on a bunch of stories today. Today is March the 30th, 2020. A lot of developments have been happening here. We're going to talk about Carnival. We're going to talk about the Iona from P&O. We're going to talk about Cunard, MSC, the Zaandam, the Rotterdam, and a whole bunch of ships off of Florida with all kinds of potential issues. We'll get to that in just 1 second. We're going live tonight, Monday night, at 7 o'clock for sponsor members and 8 o'clock on the regular channel. Those of you who love to engage with me live, this is your chance tonight, Monday night. We'll be talking about all of these topics, answering your questions. If you have anything you need to know about, drop me a line. Come on by and enjoy our live shows. Okay, thanks for subscribing to my channel with Traveling with Bruce. I really appreciate a bunch of you who have joined the channel. Thank you for giving my videos thumbs ups and also all your comments and all your tips. A lot of you have been sending me information. Some of you have friends that are crew members on board cruise ships. I really appreciate any news you can give me on how the crews are doing out there. I'll try to pass it on to the world at large. Facebook, thank you for joining Traveling with Bruce, the Facebook group page. I'm the administrator. If you want to join it, come on over there. I'll let you in. A lot of us hang out there between videos. And, of course, on Instagram, we're almost at 500 followers on Instagram. Jennifer is handling the page, and we appreciate all of you joining there as well. All right, folks, let me get to at least 6 different stories. First of all, Carnival. This will come as no surprise to any of you who are followers of what's going on in the cruise world. We were supposed to hear on Friday, 3 days ago, what the plan was for Carnival going forward. They finally released an announcement this morning that they have suspended future sailings now for another month until May the 11th, 2020. So they will be down at least 2 months from when they started in March. Now to go to May. I don't even know if they're going to make it, because the bottom line is Carnival cannot sail to Alaska or to New England into Canada, because Canada is shut down until July 1. So that shuts Carnival and all of the subsidiary lines that they own and control, shuts them all down north of the 49th parallel. It means that Carnival can sail the Caribbean if, of course, ports are open after May 11. And the other cruise lines we're talking about here would be Holland America, Princess Cruises, although Princess, I think, is going longer. And then we have Cunard, we have P&O, we have AIDA out of Germany. AIDA, I'll get it yet. I can't pronounce, folks. Anyway, lots of delays. Now, the other news from Carnival is a Radiance of the Seas is supposed to be dry docked in Cadiz, Spain. The ship is in dry dock, but it won't be worked on because Spain is on a full-blown national lockdown. They've got a number of people ill there, a huge number. And so the earliest that the Radiance will be completed, they're guessing, is June of this year. So that's another 2-3 months from now, at least 3 months from now. We'll wait and see if that happens. When it comes to refunds and credits, Carnival has come out and said, look, if you've had a cruise that is 6 days or less and your cruise has been canceled, what we'll do for you is we'll give you a 100% credit on your cruise, and we'll give you a cabin credit for $300 if you rebook the cruise. If you don't rebook the cruise and you just want your money back and don't have anything to do with us, we'll give you 100% credit. If the cruise is 6 days or longer than 6 days, in other words, 7 days or more, then it's 100% credit plus a $600 cabin credit and or a 100% full refund. Now, this cabin credit is a bit misleading. It's not per passenger, it's per cabin, because in the cruise business, you cannot just book a cabin for yourself for the price of one passenger. You have to do what's known as double occupancy booking. So 99% of the cruisers out there go as a couple. And so in the case here of the, say, a 7-day cruise, you would each receive a 100% credit towards a future cruise, and combined, the two of you would get a $600 cabin credit if you took the cruise. So that's what that means. Okay. Other news out of Carnival and the Carnival family. The P&O line out of Great Britain, which Carnival owns, the Iona ship, brand new ship that's just come out of the Werft shipyards in Germany. She was supposed to complete sea trials and have finishing work done. That is still being done, but has been delayed from being finished on time. The ship will be delayed for delivery, but not by all that long. Something tells me that, bottom line, the cruise line can't really accept delivery of the ship anyway, because they probably can't get all the crew onto it. But we're looking at a couple of months there. When it comes to Cunard, Cunard is announced today that they will be shut down until May the 15th, so they're not going to be sailing. And P&O Australia, which is the Carnival-owned division down there, they're shut down until June the 15th. So there are different dates for these different brands within Carnival, but it's at least May 11th or longer. Now, MSC has announced that they're shut down until May the 29th. They are the largest cruise ship company in Europe for Mediterranean and Baltic and Scandinavian cruising. So they're shut down right to the end of May, basically. Now, here's the latest on this story, the Zaandam and the Rotterdam from Holland America. I've been trying to update you folks on what's been going on here. The ships rendezvoused just outside of the Panama Canal last week. Medical doctors, nurses, and medical supplies were transferred from the Rotterdam to the Zaandam because the Zaandam has passengers that can't get off the ship. They haven't been able to get off the ship for almost 2.5 weeks now. No country will take the ship in. Passengers have been on this ship from early March, not when everything was still running normally. Early March, everything was running, but by the time their cruise ended in Chile, they were forbidden from getting off the ship and going home. And so now, in the meantime, 4 passengers have passed away, and a number are ill. There were 130-odd ill passengers. We now hear it's 189, 73 guests, 116 crew. It's the crew that's having a tough time of it more than the guests, but 4 guests have passed away. Now, the 2 ships were outside the Panama Canal. They did the transfer of passengers, healthy passengers, from the Zaandam to the Rotterdam, and they made sure that all the passengers on inside cabins and only ocean view cabins were transferred to the Rotterdam, those who were healthy again, to balcony cabins. All ill passengers are quarantined in their cabins. And I'm not 100% sure on this, but I'm going to take a wild stab at it. If there's any ill passenger on the Zaandam on an inside room and they're being quarantined, my hunch is that they've moved them to a balcony room to quarantine them there. They don't want them on inside rooms. I can't guarantee that, but I can certainly see that being a possibility. Now that the healthy passengers from the Zaandam are over on the Rotterdam, the Zaandam is wide open to reassign passengers that have to be quarantined. Okay. As of this past evening, in the last 12 hours, the Zaandam and the Rotterdam have passed through the Panama Canal. There was a holdup there for a while, but the Panamanian Canal authorities and the government of Panama allowed the 2 ships to go through last evening with no personnel on board except for the pilots who wore protective gear. And as a humanitarian gesture, the Panamanian government allowed the ships to pass through the Panama Canal. Okay. Ships now are sailing north, sort of northeast. They're headed to the United States. They want to come to Fort Lauderdale. They're desperate to come to basically their home port for all their North American sailing operations. So these ships use Fort Lauderdale heavily for a lot of their refueling and food and transfer of passengers. They want to get to Fort Lauderdale's port, which is Port Everglades. and they're willing to work with the government to and health authorities to transfer healthy passengers off the ship as quickly as possible, get them on charter flights to home so they can be self-quarantined, self-isolated when they get home. Or any passengers that are showing any kind of symptoms will be quarantined in say, a hotel in the Fort Lauderdale area, and those who require medical attention will be transferred to medical facilities. There are deep discussions going on behind the scenes, but the governor right now is parading in front of TV cameras saying, no, we're not going to let them in. We don't need any more sick people. But I suspect that the CDC and the feds are heavily involved in discussions, and we'll see if this posture lasts much longer. Wednesday, in the next 2 to 3 days, the ships should be pulling into that region, and I'll keep following it. There are different nationalities, Americans, Canadians, Europeans, and South Americans on these two ships. This is not a bunch of third worlders trying to find a sneaky way to come into the United States. These are, let's say, G20 country type people who are just trying to get home, and hopefully they'll be allowed off the ships there. All right, now the last story of the day has to do with all of the ships that are parked off the coast of Florida. There could be 100 of them. I haven't counted them, but it's a gazillion of them. And the reason is simple. It's easy to park here, easy to anchor here, I should say. And the Port of Miami, the Port of Fort Lauderdale, and Port Canaveral, the three busiest of all the busiest ports in the world, these are in the top 5 busiest cruise ports on the planet. And they're all expanding to handle larger amounts of business. And all these cruise lines that are anchoring ships here use these 3 ports for their business. And ships are sitting 3 miles or more offshore, and maybe once a week or every 10 days or so, they'll come in to the pier at one of these three ports, and they will bring in add additional fuel to their engines. They'll offload any wastes and adhere to all of the environmental rules. And what they have been doing quite systematically is ships will come into the Florida ports, will start offloading crew because their contracts are up. A lot of these crew members are on 6-month, 7-month, 8-month contracts, and every month contracts expire. And it's time usually what it's time is to turn over crew, to maybe get 50 people get off, 50 crew members get on, a whole bunch of passengers get off, a whole bunch of passengers get on, and they go on their merry way. These days, it's a one-way trip. There are no passengers on any of these cruise ships anchored here. It's all crew members. And in some cases, it's anywhere, in most cases, it's anywhere from 700 to 2,200 crew members per ship, depending on the size of the ship. And I'm guessing there are 100 cruise ships here between here and the Bahamas, and I'm thinking an average of at least 1,000 crew per ship. So we're talking about 100,000 people that are on board these ships. You got to feed them, so you got to pick up food every week or so, and you want to pick up vegetables once a week and keep them fresh. You don't want to do this once a month because the vegetables won't last a full month. And all the other provisions you need for crew to maintain the crew, all the drinks and any medications for whatever ailments, and you name it. It just goes on and on and on. We're going to keep following this because as I'm following these stories here, I'm noticing, for example, just 2 days ago, the Oasis of the Seas, which is Royal Caribbean's one of their big ships, announced that they had 14 cases of the virus discovered on board. They put the crew members in quarantine on the ship. They've now announced on the speaker system, the loudspeaker system on board the Oasis, that all crew will be moved from crew quarters to passenger cabins. And this is a smart move by Royal Caribbean, because if you're going to quarantine 2,200 crew, in this case I think it's 1,650, put them in balcony cabins on the ship so that at least they have access to outside air. They can sit out on the balcony and not go stir crazy. Down below deck, on deck 3 and 4, under the waterline, with 2 people sharing a cabin. So they have been shifting crew members. I keep wanting to say passengers, but they keep shifting crew members into these cabins so that they have their own space, more room, of course, and a balcony. The ill crew members, of course, have been quarantined already in cabins and will remain so. A certain number of crew members have to keep working, however, and that would be kitchen staff, the engineering department, and the bridge where the captain and all the officers are. So there are people on board the ship who never stop working unless they become ill. Then they get quarantined. But cabin stewards and waiters and bartenders, some of these folks might work a little bit, but mainly spend their time in quarantine so as to keep social distancing going on this ship. Now, from what I'm hearing elsewhere, there's all kinds of chatter going on out there between crew members and family, crew members and media. A lot of it is off the record or is without, crew members' names are being kept secret because they fear reprisals from their employers. On a number of these ships that are sitting offshore in Florida, the crew members are reporting more and more instances where they've noticed, first of all, a lot of them are being moved into passenger cabins because these cruise ships now know, and the cruise lines know, we're not sailing until middle of May or the end of May anyway. So let's put our crew in the passenger cabins with balconies. That's the first thing to do. That just makes sense. Second of all, gives the crew more space between each other. But crew members are now saying certain decks are now being set aside for ill crew members. And on a number of ships, and I don't have the specific number, but on a number of ships, crew are reporting back to their families via email and Skype and everything else that a number of the crew personnel who are delivering meals to ill passengers are being told to wear face masks and gloves. What does that tell you? Just put one and one together, it makes 2. And no one else has access to these decks. It's limited as to who gets there. These people who are quarantined cannot leave their cabins. They have to stay there. All their meals are brought to them. And the numbers of people on these ships are growing. And one of the ways the crew members know that this is happening is that once the meals are consumed, the dishes are picked up by additional crew members with carts. And these carts, if you've seen them on the board the cruise ships, or if you've certainly seen them inside of some of the dining rooms, some of these carts are 5-6 feet tall, and they can hold a lot of trays at one time. And what's happening is that these carts are in the hallways, and once the cart is filled with trays, the trays are then wheeled, the entire cart is wheeled in the elevator down to the kitchens for deep cleaning. Crew members are saying more and more cart stations are appearing in the hallways, which tips them off that there aren't 5 or 6 people here. There are dozens of them, and we're talking per ship in some cases. I can't tell you the names. I don't know the brands. I don't know who it is, whatever, because the cruise lines don't want to talk about it. But crew members are more and more concerned because a lot of them now are at the end of their contracts. In the case of Royal Caribbean, they have said that if your contract ends while you're still at sea and you can't get off the ship, no fault of your own, you will still be paid salary. You don't have to work. You're off. You don't have to work, but you'll still be paid salary, but for only 30 days. Because the cruise line is betting that they'll be able to get their crew members back to shore and get them home. The problem they're finding, the cruise lines, is that, of course, it's known that crew members on board cruise ships come from Europe, they come from Asia, they come from everywhere. And to get them home is easier said than done because of the restriction on flights. There have been a lot of flights canceled. A lot of airlines aren't operating anymore. A lot of airports have been shut down. A lot of countries have totally shut themselves off from international travel, even for their own returning nationals. And so more and more of the crew members on these cruise ships are becoming afraid of the fact that they might not be able to go home even when they're supposed to be going home. And now they're noticing that more and more of their fellow crewmates are becoming ill on board these ships. And so there's a lot of rumors flying around and a lot of worry going around between crew members and family members back home, thousands and thousands of miles away. So this is some of the latest information that is coming across my desk here, and I wanted to let you in on it. I'll be talking more about all of this tonight on the live shows, 7 o'clock for sponsor members and 8 o'clock on the regular channel. Again, folks, that is the latest. We have, like I said, news on Carnival, the Iona, the P&O Australia, Cunard, MSC, the Zaandam Rotterdam, and now the Oasis of the Seas, and all those ships stranded and sitting off the coast of Florida. Thanks again for joining me today. Sorry it took so long to get through it all. We'll talk to you later. Stay warm, stay safe, stay healthy. Bye for now.